Irving. Irving is sitting right there. Irving Pineda. He's HIP, Hip Housing's new community outreach specialist, and new, he said, about a year. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. He facilitates community presentations, participates in community events, and runs Hip Housing social media sites. And you said community events. We have several of them coming up very soon, including a couple of runs. So I might want to keep updated on what we're doing here. Let's see here. Irving also serves as Hip Housing's representative for the Home for All Outreach and Education Work Program. Irving grew up in San Mateo County, very familiar with housing challenges, currently lives in East Palo Alto, and what we all San Mateo County residents are being impacted by. And Irving, if you want to come up and please tell about all the great work you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I guess I'll stand behind this podium. So good morning, everyone.
Tell me
perfect. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm sure some of you are already familiar with HIP Housing. We're the Human Investment Project. We're a nonprofit organization that's been around since 1972, and we provide affordable housing and home sharing services in San Mateo County specifically. Our programs are home sharing, self-sufficiency, and property development. And if we can go to the next slide, please. Perfect. So I love this slide because a lot of folks, even though we've been around since 1972, have some misconceptions about the work that we do. So we are not a shelter like Life Moves, Samaritan House, or We Hope Shelter, and we are not a big developer. So we don't, partake in building large construction, and we're not like Habitat for Humanity. We're kind of in the center. So our home sharing program essentially matches people who have a spare bedroom in their home that they want to rent out with folks that are looking to rent. And through our property development program, we purchase and rehabilitate affordable housing properties throughout San Mateo County, just to make sure that affordable housing exists. Next slide, please. Perfect. So I'm going to briefly talk about our property development program. So we own and manage over 300 units throughout San Mateo County, and again, this is mostly properties that we've purchased and rehabilitated alongside other entities throughout San Mateo County and community partners and community support. And we generate a modest amount of income from those properties that we then funnel back into our programs. The reason we created our property development program was essentially to house folks who participate in our self-sufficiency program, which I will talk about next. But it's a really great help for our nonprofit because that modest income that we are then able to funnel back into our programs makes us a little more sustainable, which is something that has helped with our longevity. Next slide, please. So our self-sufficiency program, I know that I'm constantly talking about our home sharing program, but this is actually my favorite program. It's essentially magic. It's a scholarship that we provide for parents that are looking to go back to school. We help them pay their rent anywhere from 1 to 5 years, depending on their career track. And so this is a really great resource for any parents that you might know who have young children who are struggling to make that tough choice of either paying for school tuition or paying for rent, especially given how high the rents are in San Mateo County. And so definitely look at this as a resource for any great, folks that, who might benefit from this program. So participants receive subsidized rent while they complete an education or job training program, and the goal or the overall vision of the program is that once they get their degree, then they will be able to find a job that will allow them to not only provide for their families but also offset the cost of living in San Mateo County. So we're there to help out to make sure that they have the resources that they need to succeed. Next slide, please. Home sharing, perfect. Okay. So our home sharing program, as I mentioned, takes advantage of already existing housing stock. So people's spare bedrooms that they have. And we match folks who have those spare bedrooms with folks that are looking to rent. Now, if you would go to the next slide, please. So there are two types of home sharing. A simple, a home provider is matched with a home seeker who pays rent. And a home provider is simply the person who has a spare bedroom in their home that they want to rent out. A home seeker is simply the person who is looking to rent. But we also have what is called a reduced rent exchange, which is really unique, which means that basically if someone is willing to help out with small tasks around the house. For example, purchasing groceries, maybe driving at night, because over 60% of the people who participate in our home sharing program, who are home providers, are seniors. And so, if someone is willing to help them out around the house, nothing that requires medical training, nothing that would require, something complicated, then, you would receive a reduced rent exchange, which is a really great form of help for both the home provider and the home seeker. Next slide, please. Perfect. So how it works. So a lot of the work that I do in the community is dispelling some misconceptions and fears that people might have about opening up their home to a relative stranger. So I talk a lot about our applicant screening process. So we do run background checks on both the home seeker and the home provider to make sure that this will be a healthy match. We have folks do an income verification, and then we also ask for 3 references from their previous places where they were staying, living, and they are also assigned a counselor, so a home sharing coordinator who helps them navigate the process. So we want folks to know that they will always be supported. It's easy to get lost in a process like this, applying to a program like this, but I would like to mention that our program is completely free to use for anyone who lives, works, or goes to school in San Mateo County. I would also like to mention that a lot of the work that we do is information and referral. So even if you know folks who are outside of the county who could benefit from a program like this, you can send them over to us, you can have them call our number, and then we'll refer them out to other home sharing programs that exist throughout the Bay Area, some of which we have helped create. And so once folks are matched and they've decided that they want to live together, we facilitate what's called the Living Together Agreement, which is this really great document that basically spells out what they want this match to look like. We want to make sure that these matches are healthy. We want to make sure that the folks are happy with their living circumstances. Our longest running active match has been active in Millbrae for over 20 years. It was a gentleman that worked at a hardware store, which I believe is still near the Millbrae BART station, and basically he just wanted to live closer to work. As we've already talked about a little bit when I first came in, traffic is a challenge now in San Mateo County, and so this gentleman was able to find housing near where he worked, and he's been there for over 20 years, and he's super happy, and so that's kind of what we're aiming to do. We also do work with Home for All. I serve on their outreach and education work group. Home for All is a county initiative that basically has been tasked with informing people about some of the housing challenges in San Mateo County. So between 2010 and 2017, approximately 83,000 new jobs were created in San Mateo County, but less than 7,100 new units of housing were created. So the jobs housing gap makes it so that the majority of people who work in San Mateo County don't live here. So that's why we're seeing all of this traffic, people commuting from hours and hours away just to get to where they work. And so by home sharing, we're hoping that we're able to help people find places, safe places to live near where they work. I also want to mention that we do not have an income requirement for our home sharing program. And the great thing about our program is that there's no wait list. It's based on supply and demand. So basically, if someone has a spare bedroom in their home that they want to rent out, we match them with someone who's looking to rent. And and I'll talk a little bit more about some of our other options for housing. Next slide, please. So why home share? So we talked a little bit about, living closer to where you work, but you also save money. So I mentioned earlier that over 60% of the people who are home providers in our home sharing program are seniors. And what we've seen specifically here in San Mateo County is that we have a lot of seniors who are housing rich, but income poor. And so by renting out a spare bedroom in their home, they're able to offset the cost of living here. You can share utility costs, which is a great money-saving opportunity, reduce financial worry, and through our reduced rent exchange, sometimes you can provide mutual assistance, having someone help you around the house, and it increases your security and independence. Next slide, please. So who home shares? Like I mentioned, seniors, working individuals, students, people with disabilities, families, veterans, and emancipated foster youth. And the great thing about our established legacy with HIP Housing in San Mateo County is that we partner with a lot of really great nonprofit organizations that are already serving the community that help us find really great individuals that could benefit from our home sharing program. Next slide, please. So like I mentioned, yes, program demographics, over 60% are seniors, over 66% are single female. We have the average income for folks, and home seekers matched. We have a lot of folks that are teachers. Yes?
During that average rent, is that what the tenant pays the homeowner?
Yes, thank you so much for asking that. So average rent is around $850, $1,000, which is, significant given the current housing costs in San Mateo County. But like I mentioned, that figure includes a lot of our reduced rent exchange transactions that happen through HIP Housing. I will say that, if someone is looking to rent like market rate, we don't, we are able to take on that client if someone's looking to charge maybe $2,000 for a room or whatnot. We can help help them sign up for the program, and then hopefully maybe we'll be able to match them with someone. But the goal of our program is to help people pay less than what folks are currently charging, which is a lot. But thank you for that. Next slide, please. So home sharing programs, like I mentioned, we're not the only home sharing program in the Bay Area. There are other home sharing programs, some which we have helped start. So initially the Fremont program was housed under HIP Housing, but now that we've helped them get off the ground, the city of Fremont has taken it over, and so it's its own entity, which is really exciting. And I believe, Santa Clara County has a new home sharing program that's being spearheaded by Catholic Charities, which is really exciting. And so we're seeing more and more of these home sharing programs pop up. We recently hosted the first ever National Home Sharing Conference in San Mateo County in over 10 years. And so we had folks from different home sharing programs throughout the United States come and learn sort of about our programs and best practices and all that good stuff. Next slide, please. So what clients say? Okay, so it could provide a peace of mind for folks that are having a tough time finding an affordable place to live here in San Mateo County. Better living arrangement without the cost. My financial situation turned around. My housemate keeps my mind sharp. Companionship. So we recently had this study, I believe it was by the Frameworks Institute, which it was a study on loneliness that said that loneliness is more detrimental to your health than smoking 5 packs of cigarettes a day. And so that's just based on the emotional toll it takes on an individual. And so if you're sharing your home with someone, you're constantly having someone there. That's great for companionship. And shared housing helps save money and enriches my life. So our goal with our home sharing program is to provide a really great resource for folks in San Mateo County that doesn't have a wait list, that doesn't have an income requirement, that people can apply to whenever they would like. The way that folks apply to our program is that they simply call our number, which I'll leave some of my cards behind for folks that are interested, and they just say that they're interested in our home sharing program. So now, Rob has given me a little paddle sign, so I want to open it up for some questions. Yes?
I know what your first point is, and I want to encourage HIP Housing, which is a phenomenal organization, what you do, to resurrect your counseling program that you had. It died somewhere 6-7 years ago, it seems like, and the reason it died was because they couldn't get anybody to pass the certification. And so it went fallow, and eventually it was abandoned, and because the actual counselor moved up to Marin County. But everything that you said here today is so true. You said house rich, cash poor. Yeah. That's classic. And there is an underserved community out there of people who are visually impaired, speaking impaired, and they can't do counseling over the telephone and they're shut out of the market. And this is also, these people you're counseling, they are classic people for the home share program, because that $850, they don't need the reverse mortgage anymore.
Right.
And so it's such a critical thing. I understand it's difficult to keep a program going, but if you guys could resurrect that, it would be awesome.
Thank you so much for that suggestion, and I'll be sure to take that back to our executive director. Any other questions about home sharing, about our self-sufficiency program, about our property development? Yes?
How are you able, from a financial point of view, what sharing in terms of potential resources, you're able to buy properties, renovate them, and so forth. Where's the funding come from that, and how can we help with that?
Definitely. So each year we have an annual fundraiser, which is coming up. Thank you so much for reminding me. It's slated to take place on June 6th, Thursday, June 6th. And we have our speaker lined up, Father Gregory Boyle, who created this really great program that helps folks who were in prison rehabilitate and find them employment. And so he's going to be our guest speaker. So we do fundraising through our annual luncheon. We also apply to different grants. We are funded by different cities throughout San Mateo County. I believe every city throughout San Mateo County helps with our funding. And individual donations too. So if anyone is looking to donate to help out, hiphousing.org. Thank you.
Yeah, great, thanks.
Great. Any other questions?
I was going to say that, I want to say County San Mateo funds projects in hip housing. Those you guys like to sell a lot. And one factoid I can say is because I do rent rent negotiations and county and single room rentals, and they are, I think I've got some at $1,400 a month, a little bit more, right at $1,500 for a single room. So those numbers are good, especially if you're trying to go in and negotiate lower.
Yes.
As a housing authority, a person, I have to go in and provide market rate, or the best I can do at market rate. So basically, we take, say, a 4-bedroom home. We look at the room rate that they want to give. We take that number, multiply that times 4, and then base that on the comparable rents for houses in there, and that's how we get these numbers that are just so high. We were saying, wow, $1,400 for a single room, and ironically, a 3-bedroom house can get more than when we start getting larger 4, 5, 6 bedrooms, then the numbers go down. So it's just interesting, just a factoid that that number was really nice. I have never seen a number that low.
Yeah.
And I do this every day.
Yeah.
I negotiate rents daily.
Yeah. And I think a great credit to that goes to our reduced rent exchange. We recently had a gentleman who was renting out a room in Millbrae who had some medical complications and just needed assistance with light cooking, maybe purchasing groceries. He was charging $400 a month for one room for someone to just help him out with light cooking and purchasing groceries. That's unheard of. And it's a really great way to help each other out. So definitely, if you know of anyone that could benefit from any of our programs, please feel free to visit hiphousing.org. I'll leave some of my cards behind, and thank you so much for having me. Oh, yes?
Do the rates vary according to location? The old saying, real estate location, location, location.
Yeah.
So if I have a home in Millbrae, is it going to differ from Hillsborough versus San Mateo?
Oh yes, and our home sharing coordinators would be better equipped to answer that question. I'm not privy to the information that they did to answer that, but I do know that yes, there's a big difference depending on where you're looking to rent within the county.
I can, yes.
Yeah. Housing authority.
I'm going to different counties. San Mateo property cities is really expensive versus in East Palo Alto or Data City or South City, where the prices can be a little bit more reasonable.
Great.
Thank you so much.
I'd like to